All right, so welcome once again. Yesterday we developed this form. That is, we defined the structure of our HTML form. I remember I did said that in websites, a form is used to collect users' inputs, and the inputs will be submitted to a database, which is an element of the backend. So we were able to use HTML to structure this form. From the inputs we have provided, it means we should be able to use this form to collect the first name of users, the middle name, the last name, the date of filling the form, and then the agenda, the select states, and then, if possible, password. But we are going to remove the password field. We only use it to explain how to create the password field. It's not as if it's actually needed in this particular form. So let me quickly remove that. Yeah, I did. I think it's from here. Yes. So I don't need it. So in this section, we are focusing on how to beautify the form, how to make it user friendly, because this is not presentable to users. And like I said, the form should be attractive. Users should be attracted to fill the form due to the way you fine-tune it with your CSS after the structure or the structural definition with HTML. So to start with, we are going to create a CSS file just for styling the form and its properties or elements. So let me quickly create external CSS. So I have some CSS already created in my CSS folder. So I will just add this here. I can just name it form.css. And then, of course, being an external CSS, I have to connect it to the form page. So this is the form I'm working with, I'm very sure. Okay. So I have to go to the head section as we have been taught to link it with link, and then slash, then go into the CSS folder and then select the form page or file. Now, the first thing we are going to do is, I think I should just delete this particular form, or no, I think I use this for another class. So this is the form. Now, if you look at the front end, there are a whole lot of things we need to enhance. But we are going to start with the form itself. Remember that we started by declaring the form tag before we started adding the other elements. So as we want to start, the first thing I want to prioritize is the form itself. Because being a block element, you can see that it's already displaying 100% width. And I want to reduce it from 100% to maybe something lesser. Let's say to half of the current width. So the first thing I'm going to do is to check how I am going to select the form. The form was in class, so it means I am going to select it with the tag name. So I'll go to my CSS file and then I'll simply use comment to explain styling the form elements or styling the form. So how I am selecting the form is by the tag name. So I'll simply call form, then open my CSS declaration block. So the first thing I said I want to achieve is to resize the width of the form. So I'll start by calling width property, and then I'll say 50% of the current width. So if I go back to the front end and check, I'm not sure I'm connecting to the right file, form.css. So what I have done is I have been able to resize the form. Initially the form was covering the entire width of the page. So it's still the CSS file. So we reduce the width of the form from 100% to.
Please, I'm coming.
Okay, so like I was saying, so you have to continue styling until the form looks presentable. So as it is now,
Where I stopped is when you made the folder.
where I created a folder, I don't think I created a
Yes.
folder. Is it the CSS file now?
The file, sorry, yes.
Good. Yes, this is it. At the same place. The only thing I've added is this comment line, and I have reduced the form width from 100% to 50%. That is what what brought. You can see that the size, the width of the form has reduced. Are you with me? So that is the only thing that I've done. So the next thing I want to do is I want to reset the default style of the form. There is what we call default margin and default padding. For example, I told us some time ago that every element should be captured or seen as a box model, which means that we will relate to all the content as if they are wrapped in a box. So if that should be the case, then we will not have space or spaces between the content in the box and the border lines around it. Then, sorry, let me. Okay, so I will try to explain that by default, there is a calculated margin, there is a calculated padding, but I will try to re-echo what I describe padding and margin to be. I told us that for every content like this now, if you type anything here, the space between the content and the border lines around it is called padding. That's the space on the inside. While the space between the whole of this middle name and the first name from the outside is called margin. I hope you still remember when I explained that. So
Yes.
it's good. Now, what we are trying to achieve now is that this form as it is now, by default, it came with a calculated margin and padding, which we want to disengage. We want to stop it. So that is the next thing I want to do then. And for us, we will say we don't want margin. We don't want a padding. So there are some CSS properties that I want you to know. It is not compulsory that you can or you must reset the default. But just in case you are interested in resetting the default margin and the padding of the form, this is how you communicate it. So let me just use comment to explain it. That is to reset default style of the form. Now, The way you will call it is you call the global selector. We refer to it as global selector. So whenever you see any CSS code where asterisk is used in the place of elements, actual name or ID or class, you know that it's referred to as what? The main object. That is what? The margin between the container and the body of the browser. That is what you are referring to. You can see how I selected this now. This is not like H1, then CSS block. This is asterisk CSS block, which means that you are talking about the space between the main object and the body itself. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll say boss sizing. I'll say boss sizing, and then I'll say border boss. So if I go to the front end and check, you may not notice any difference. Well, let me add. So what this actually does is to contain, to limit the entire form to the container that is holding it. So like the last time we created the form, we discovered that some of the input were spanning out from the boss or the form itself. So we have to reduce the, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was this class. So, but we will experience that when that time come, we will see how I will refer you back to what this is actually doing. But if I may just explain, by the time we start increasing the length of these boxes, a time can come where this box will span away from this box. That is, instead of limiting itself to somewhere here, you will see it spanning above the container. So a way of containing it that you must remain within the parent container. You must not have overflow or extra. You must not go beyond the container you are in. That is what we are trying to avoid ahead with this boss sizing border boss. That is what no element in the form should go outside the form boundary. That is the simple. So why is not making any impact now? We have not styled any element that is going above the boundary of the container is within. But we are just trying to be proactive. That should be in case any element try to go beyond the container that is holding it, it should force it to remain within the container.
I'm lost. This asterisk you put here is for
I can't hear you. You are muting. If you are talking, just unmute.
the asterisk.
Yes, this asterisk, I said, is a global selector, which means that you are referring to the form. In this case now, after the body, this is the body of the browser. So the browser body should be seen as a container in which you are displaying another container, which is your form, holding these various elements. Now, we are saying that by default, there is space here. You can see this space here, and then you can also see this space here, which means that you are not the one that defined that margin. So the way we can remove it is to say asterisk. That asterisk, like I said, it represents global selector, which means that whenever it is used, you are talking to the very first container, that is the body. Let me go to the HTML so that you can see it. This is the form page. You have this as the first container. Are you with me? You have this as the first container. Then inside it, you declare this one. So we are saying that the space between this body and the body of the browser that has been calculated by default, we want to reset it because automatically the browser have already created some space between the body that is holding the entire form and the browser body. So the logic we use in web development to reference that particular, to tell the browser that please do not calculate margin, do not calculate padding, is to say I'm not calling any element. I'm just saying what? The global. Now, where you understand it better is, let's say margin. I believe with this you get it. But if you say margin 0. Now, if I go back to the page now, what did you notice? I want you to tell me your observation. Check this side. You can see that
Yes.
you have cleared that margin, right?
Yes.
Now, if I come here now and I say padding, like the description say, resetting the default style. So by default, the form has been assigned a margin. By default, the form has been assigned a padding, but we are saying that we don't want it. Now, if I click now, what did you also notice? You can see that what? The form itself now, you have removed the default margin and you have removed what? The default padding. Like I said, it's a choice. So it is a global standard that anytime you want to stop the browser from calculating the margin of the main element, which is in this case now is the form, between the form and the body. Are you getting it now?
Not really, but just go on.
Okay, so let me try and explain because I know it's a bit logical. Now, if I remove all this, let me remove this. This is how your form came. If I ask you now, who asked this form to leave this space? You are not the one, right? That is, the browser on its own calculated this margin and also calculated what? So see this form that is inside another container called body. See it that is inside another container called body. Sorry for the shape of the line. Now, if you see this form that is inside another container called body, from the way you structure it from your HTML section, it means that it's the browser calculated this margin by itself. This margin by itself. So we are saying that instead of me calling the form and say what? Margin 0, padding 0, I can simply, based on the standard rule, I can simply say in my CSS, asterisk. So that asterisk is indirectly representing the form as the first element. So that is what we are trying to achieve here. So it's a concept that I said is not compulsory. If you feel that, okay, you don't want to talk to the form direct, you want to use this global selector, because you can come across some code that have this and you're wondering, what is this? This is a global selector, which is used to reset the margin and the padding of an element. So the next thing we are going to do now, we want to talk to the form now. So styling the form itself, which we have already established here. So I will just make use of this. So talking to the form, the first thing I want to do is to resize the width. So I don't want to use this. So I could just say width, just to use pixel. I can say, okay, I can maintain the width actually, or I can say maximum width. So the idea is to expose you to some of these CSS property. So when you say maximum width, you are setting a limit that no matter how the form we display should not go beyond certain limit. So why we are doing this? Because this form is going to be a responsive form. It's going to be a form that when someone use phone, to open the website, the font will contrast to the size of the phone screen. When someone use laptop, the font will also display well. So the plan is that this form should be responsive. So based on that plan, you will see me using some CSS property that may not be reacting immediately because I am on laptop. So the best way you will see their reaction is when you shift from laptop view to mobile view. So what we are trying to set here now, we are trying to limit it that even if it comes on another device, like smaller device like phone, the form should not display beyond this width. So, but this is not the actual width of the form. You can see that I have removed the word, the width initially I have there. Let me refresh and see what I have. And now I have used this indirectly to limit the form not to display 100%. That is one thing I've achieved. So the next thing is I want to set some margins. I want to set some margin. The margin, like I said, I'm picturing a smaller device, not just laptop. So one of the class, I explained to us that when you are calculating margin, you have an opportunity to work with 4 different margin. You have margin top, margin bottom, margin right, margin left. And you can use one value to represent top and bottom, use a value to represent left and right. I believe we have established that. So if I write a value like this, 20 PS, and I say what? Auto as in second value, what does that mean? What does that mean?
What does what mean?
Huh?
So what does what mean?
Look at the way I wrote the margin. I say 20 PS, one side, and then the other side auto. I'm asking you, what does this kind of code represent? Remember margin have 4 sides. And out of 4 sides, you are supposed to have 4 different values representing top, bottom, left, right. But instead of that, you are using 2 values to represent the whole of the 4. And I'm asking you, what is the communication? Which of the axes this one is representing? Which one this one is representing? I know I've explained that before. Do you still remember?
Yes,
Okay, so where I explain.
I'm not sure.
Okay, now, that time I drew a box and I said every element should be seen as a box, which means that the content inside, the space between the content inside, if I may just, let me see if I can quickly demonstrate it again because it's very important. So this could be your H1 content inside the box. This could be your P tag, your P content inside another box. The space between this element and this element from the outside is called margin. The space between the content this tag is going to produce and the border lines around it, the border lines around it, the border lines around it, the border lines around it. So let's say the content will be here. So this space from the content from here to this borderline is called padding space. That is why we have 4 values for padding. Padding top, padding right, padding left, padding bottom. Then the space between this whole element and another element from the outside is called margin. So there could be another element here. There could be another element here. There could also be another element here. So this is margin right, the space between this element to the right hand side. This is margin top. This is margin bottom. This is margin left. So when you say 20 like this 20 represent top and what? Bottom. And this also means what? Left and right. Is that clear?
Yes.
Good. All right. So if I go back to the front end now and see if we have, you can see what has happened. The form has moved to what? It has moved to the center. So what moved it now? This space that we have here and this space that we have here is auto. Why this space that you have here, from here to here, and here, if there's another element, is the 20 PS. Did you understand that? So which
Yes.
means that this value represents left and what? Right. Why this value represent top and bottom. Good. So I just want you to understand that. So it's a logic we use to, instead of writing 4 value, you can just use one to represent 2 axes, the other one to represent the other axis. So now the next thing is for us to also communicate the padding, since we just spoke to the space on the outside. So the padding, if I just say 20 PS, just one value, knowing that there are 4 padding values and you spoke only one, which is what? 20 PS. What it means is that what? All the sides, we have what? Equal space of what? 20 PS. So let me go back to the form. So that's for all the sides, we have padding is the inside, the content inside. So like I said, most of these, we may not see their impact until we complete other things. The fonts family. Remember that font family is to define set of handwriting that should be used to present all your form tests. So I can have a collective handwriting, that is one handwriting plus another handwriting will give me an appearance. So the first one, all these are not they are subjected to changes depending on your choice, actually, depending on what you want. So if I select here now, it means I'm combining 2 different handwriting to form a different handwriting. So, but I just want 2, I don't want 3. That is why it's called what? Font family. So if I go to the front end now, you can see that what? The handwriting have changed from the default. Now, the next thing I want to style is the field set. Remember, I told us that the field set is the one that created what? This line. Do you still remember? The field set is the one that created this line. So I want to talk to that element in my CSS. So styling the field sets. So the field set was in class. So I'm going to reference it as, or with its name, tag name, which is called field sets. Now, the first thing I want to do, I want to talk to the border line. Maybe I want to change the color of this line, or I don't even want it. So I will say, I want border, then define the thickness of that border, define the type of line to be solid, and then I can say the color, I want to use hexadecimal method of calculating color. Hexadecimal method is where you start with hash like this, and then if you combine some letters or some number, that will calculate a color, just like the way we use the RGBA concept. So what I'm going to do here, if I say CCC, that will give me a color. Look at the color it generated. If I say AAA, that will give you another color. So if I go to the front end, you can see that what I have already, the field set, you can see that the field set is a bit dim now. It's not as smart as it was before. So now the next thing I want to do is padding. I want to give some space on the inside. And I will just want general padding. That is what equal internal space all side. So you can see what that has done now. That have shifted all this content. So you now have space on the inside, equal space 20, 20, 20. And then if all these write-up are stretched to this place, there will also be a 20 PS. That is the reason why I did not say padding left, padding right, because I want it to go round. I hope you are following.
Yes.
Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is, like I say, all these are subjected to changes if you don't want them, but during training, we have to use a sample to pass the message. So the next one is border radius. I believe you understand what is called border radius. These lines that have sharp corners, I want to like curve them a little. I'm just trying to look at a way of giving the user more professional interface. So I'll say border radius. Border radius is a CSS property that we are familiar with. So border radius, I will just say 8 PS. Your can be 10 PS, depending on how you want it. So if I click here, you can see that I have all the corners curved. And this makes the form look more presentable. That is the objective. So the next thing I want to do is the background. I want to give the form a kind of background. Sorry, the few sets. So I can just say background, and I decided to use a hexadecimal method of calling color in this section so that you can get used to this method as well, where RGBA face you or using the name of the color. So here I'm going to RGB, you have, hexadecimal, you have to start with hash, and then I will say FFF, that is a color. So if I go back there, so that is the few set color, the background color. So it look like white, but it's not absolutely white. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to is the legend. The legend was what created this particular form description. So if I go,
So,
okay,
so, so please, my head is spinning me.
okay. So maybe we should stop here, right?
Mm.
So that at the end of the day, to not. So let me suspend the class till on Tuesday so that.